Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Pastor JR. Thank you so much for tuning in to another ELEV8 Thursday Nights, ELEV8 Careers Edition. Now, this is the fourth episode that we've already done, so if you haven't seen the other three, stop the video right now, go watch those other three so you can catch up and watch this fourth one. Well, without further ado, you might recognize this guy from being around the church. He's actually an ELEV8 dad. Can we give it up real quick for Tony Tolbert?
Yo, Pastor JR. It's an honor to be here, man. I'm so happy to be able to do this.
That's cool, man. I'm really happy that you were able to make it. Now, some people might have known about your history, might know about what, the years and years of dedication you made, but what I wanted to talk to you about was your career in the military. So a lot of kids are going to be graduating high school and they're going to be deciding what they want to do with their lives. Not a lot of people think about the military all the time. I know we live right outside of Travis Air Force Base, but I wanted to talk to a guy that has already done all his time in the military, what it's like, what's the ins and outs and stuff are like. And so let's get to it. Now you didn't wait a couple years. Like, you weren't an OG like my dad when he went into the military. Like, you went in right after high school. Why?
Yeah, for me, I was a military brat. So what that basically means for the people who may not be familiar with that term is like your mom or your dad or maybe both of them served. And for me, both my mom and dad did serve in the Air Force, and they actually met right after basic training. So I literally exist because of the Air Force. Now, with that being said, I was kind of like everybody else. That's something mom and dad did. I didn't really want to go that route. I was thinking if I'm gonna join the Air Force, I want to be a pilot. That's why people go in. The statistics are true that there's only like 4 to 6% of the people in the Air Force are pilots. So all that other math that's left over, it's everything you can think of, man. There's like almost 200 different career fields and jobs in the Air Force. But for me to answer that question, it boiled down to, because I got into USC and I got recruited by Boston College.
Oh,
man,
wow.
You didn't know that, JR?
No, I didn't. That's pretty cool.
Go Trojans. But I got in, but it was going to take me to pay for it, and mom and dad weren't really made of money, so I was sitting there thinking. And the decision, I got through school, graduated, I saw my buddies going off to college and stuff, and I'm like, oh God, I got to do something, because I didn't want to just hang out at home, because you know what happens then, you get that one job, kind of turns to a dead-end career, might get in trouble or something silly, and then now you got to work through that. So I didn't want to waste time. I woke up one Saturday morning and I just kind of had a mental conversation and got all the faculties together and was like, you in agreement? You in agreement? Let's do this. And went to the recruiter. The rest of it was a piece of cake, man. So yeah, I did it because I knew that it would start my life early as far as benefits, like medical, dental, all that kind of good stuff. I didn't have to worry about that. I was going to have a steady paycheck. I was even living in a dorm. So it was almost like having the college life with all the benefits applied, like a full-time job. So I knew that because I was a brat, but oh my God, so much information out there.
That's definitely...
Come see me. I used to be a recruiter too. We'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But man, I think it's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize when they look at a job. They think about the paycheck, like what pays the most, but they don't ever consider benefits. And just being, I guess you can consider myself a military brat too. My dad's serving in the Army. He had found out about his heart condition while he was in the Army. Ended up getting his Chapter 35. I was able to go to school and get paid for it to go to school.
Absolutely.
So that's cool. And brother, sister, everything. So
they're all set.
Yeah, everybody's set, and that's just one of the biggest benefits of being able to go into the military. For hopefully you don't have to be 100% disabled, but you still get stuff paid for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now here's one of the things that I think most people think about when they think about military. They think about the drill sergeant yelling in your face. They think about no sleep, hiking 10 miles every morning. What was basic training like? Like, give us the real deal. And I know every branch might be a little different, but for you, your experience, what was basic training like?
Man, that is so good. I love the way you phrase that, and you see I'm over here cracking up, man, because I can tell you flat out, it was nothing like you see on TV. We weren't getting beat up. There was no Full Metal Jacket, dudes running after you with soap bars because you had a candy bar and you got caught or something silly. It was none of that craziness. What it really was for me, and you're really right about each branch being very unique. So you have to think about that too. If you're joining the Air Force, remember you're going to be dealing with air and space assets. So whatever your job's going to be is going to support that. And you just install the other branch of the military, and you just basically have to follow that pattern. Like if you're going to be in the Marines, if you're going to be in the Army, understand that they're amphibious / infantry, which means you're going to be, you yourself are going to either be a Marine or a soldier first. Being an airman, what that means is that our job, what we physically do, is the primary. Being an airman is what we are, but that doesn't come before we actually do the job. Okay. So it's the Air Force is very unique like that. We were created in 1947, so it's the youngest branch, but it's also very different and unique because you kind of have to, in order for aircraft, spacecraft, satellites, and things to work, you got to have the people pushing that. But basic training, oh my God, man, it was literally more of a mental thing. It was like getting out of the what is that room you go to and you have to like figure out, okay, if I
escape
can put
room
this here. Yes. It was very much like the escape room, but it was like a mental version of that, you know. And you just have to go in. If you have a good recruiter, they'll let you know, they'll get you prepared before you go. And then nowadays it's so much better than when I went in. You know, the dorms they stay in, it looks like the USS Enterprise or something. Like the saucer section is ridiculous, man. These folks, I start to say kids. You know, if you make a commitment to join the Air Force, you're a bit elevated above a kid, any branch of the military. But you're going to be staying in state-of-the-art facilities, but it's a mental challenge to get through it. It's just like any other obstacle. Yeah, there's yelling, there's screaming, there's people probably going to be cussing and stuff like that. But no physical harm. Like nobody was jumping on landmines or none of that stuff. You know what I mean? I actually got told to slow down during the last day because that's our big PT hoorah. Yeah. We're gonna graduate like in 3 days, but you got to get through the physical course. Man, I was running through there. I was jumping over stuff because I wanted to make it like the movies. I was like, yeah, you know, swinging over crap, and they were like, slow down. What are you doing? And I'm like, oh my gosh. So didn't mean that the Air Force was weak, soft, or easier because it's definitely tough, especially today.
Yeah.
Because the Air Force is integrated into this expeditionary mindset, which means you can be serving your job that I talked about earlier, but you can do that from anywhere. So you have to be prepared for that. And they really do a great job of getting you prepared. When I went through, it was 6 weeks. People called it Disneyland. It really wasn't Disneyland, you know, but it's about 8 weeks now. And I think your last week, you spend a lot of time kind of like living in the field. In a tent, you paint your face, you know, you're living off the land a little bit. They try to make it real to get you prepared. Now, you could go on into your Air Force career and never ever experience anything like that, but at least you've been exposed to it.
Right.
So for me, honestly, it was a piece of cake. The hardest part for me was just being away from family, but I knew that going in.
So I've always been curious about, is your job, is it something that you select or is it something that the Air Force selects for you? I've heard all these things about taking tests and going to schools. How does that work as far as like choosing your job, getting a job? How does that work?
I can tell you're a military brat. You got some good questions. I like this. But no, this is actually fantastic, Pastor JR, because there's so many people that go in with misconceptions of like how it works and all this kind of stuff. The number one thing is to remember is that all these branches are totally different. Yes, you are a member of the United States military, but we are not all the same. So once you get past that barrier, yes, there's qualifications. ASVAB, which stands for the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. Try saying that 3 times fast. There'd be no reason to say that 3 times fast. That's ridiculous. But anyway, the only portion of that matters is the last part where it says aptitude battery, because think of it as a placement exam. You know, all branches of the military are more technical, especially today. You know, you're going to be dealing with technology. You're going to be dealing with advanced levels of communication and even advanced levels of training. So if you got a guy, man, or a girl, and they're coming in, you want to know where you can place these people. Just like any corporation or any organization want to know, who are my people? What is their aptitude ability? Who actually has the capacity to learn the most? You know, you don't want to just bring somebody in and maybe they're more situated to, I don't want to say low end or like mopping. You used to hear these jobs like, oh man, I'm a cook. That's crap. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that anymore either. Yeah. I think that was like the Vietnam days, you know, where it's like, blindfold you, pin the tail on the donkey, you know, they'll spin you around.
It's your job.
Yeah, like, go walk out there, and then when you get outside the gates of basic training, whoever talks to you first, that'll be your career. It was bad back in the days. We're talking like 60s, I believe, some of the 70s. But the Air Force and all the military really reorganized how they structured themselves. The Air Force stands a bit above because we're more high-tech than all the other branches. So your ASVAB cutoff scores are going to need to be higher. Your physical requirements are probably going to be a little bit more demanding. And, you know, for obvious reasons. That's kind of getting into the recruiter talk. I can deep dive into that stuff if somebody wants to do a one-on-one, or if we do another segment where we literally talk about the recruiting requirements.
Okay.
But just to really answer your question, yes, you have to come out of, you need high school. The Air Force is going to require a high school diploma. So you got to get that thing squared away. If you're, let's say, a student that didn't finish high school, but you went and got like a GED, I'm just giving you general terms now. Mm-hmm. You could get in. You could still get in, but they're only like about 500 to 1,500 people out of like the 30-something thousand that the Air Force brings on board will actually be able to slot under that. But if you come in with a GED, or let's say like if you're a homeschool student, you still need to produce a certain amount of hours of, let's say, a college. It could be technical credit, or it could be like a junior college. You got to do that to bring you up to the equivalency of a high school graduate.
Okay.
So there is benefits to getting that high school diploma. Stay in school, kids. Get it done. So,
sure.
Other than that, did that answer your question?
No, absolutely.
Okay. Because I have detailed files, but I just want to give you stuff that's relevant.
Tony's like an encyclopedia of information. Yeah. But nah, man. Just hearing all that, like, what is your job? I know, especially when you go like career length, that your jobs may change.
Oh yes.
Like, where'd you start off at, and then like kind of maybe walk us through the work or jobs that you had while you were in.
Absolutely. So I don't know if you've seen that shirt that says like, I don't always stare at airplanes when they fly by. And then in small print it goes like, nah, yes I do.
Yeah.
So that's totally me.
Yeah.
Man. I was an aviation fanatic. Probably as early as I can remember. Actually, I started off wanting to be in space. I wanted to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
And then Challenger happened. I'm kind of dating myself, but anyway. After that, I was like, yeah, I don't want to be an astronaut, man. What else we got? You know, and then aerospace engineer, something dealing with aviation, and the whole world just opened up to me. Took a flight from Kansas City to Atlanta, and man, it was like a rebirth. But when I got in the Air Force, I wanted to work aircraft. I actually wanted to go into electronics.
Okay.
And so what I tried to do, I tried to be smart, and I scored well enough, but I tried to maneuver myself so I can work. Oh, it stopped?
We'll keep it moving.
Oh, okay.
All right, wait. So can you hit record? Will you record again?
Yeah.
And it'll just pick up where we left off?
Yeah, it should.
Okay.
All right.
It's going?
All right. What I decided to do is I wanted to angle myself to get out in front of electronics, because that was exciting at the time. I was really getting into that in high school. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to still work on airplanes, so maybe avionics when you put the two together. But Big Blue had different plans. They were like, hey, we kind of need crew chiefs, which the fancy version of that, when you look at it, you know, you're this 18, 19-year-old coming out of high school and you're staring at this thing and you're like, oh man, what's a aerospace maintenance technician? That sounds so cool. It was a crew chief. You know, you're going to be out there turning wrenches, making sure the airplanes fly and all that kind of good stuff. And, you know, I was like, okay, it gets me around airplanes, I'll do it. And so that's what I started off doing initially, probably for about the first 7 years. I worked on the B-52. It's a bomber. So I went into Air Combat Command. That's like, just think of the Air Force broken down into different fighting forces. So if you're in a fighter, that's going to be more of a tactical. And if you're bombers, that's strategic. You know, tactical is going to be close. Think strategic. Bombers, long range, can go fly way the heck out somewhere. But in the year that I came in, they combined all that stuff. Actually, it was a year before I came in. They combined both of those and created Air Combat Command. So I was a B-52 guy. B-52 has been around forever.
Yeah.
The first one flew in 1952. So, but I was on the latest variant called the H model. And I started my career at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana.
Okay.
Man, I did pull out the map and start looking at this. So it's in the northwest corner of Louisiana. But did that for 7 years. Got really good at working on airplanes. But working on airplanes can be tough because you're outside in the elements. And I was like, what else can I do? Before I got into something else, the Air Force moved me to B-1 bombers. And I moved to Rapid City, South Dakota. That's where the four presidents, Mount Rushmore. Yeah. Real pretty up there. Sucks in the winter. It's cold, buddy. Put on your cold weather gear because it's freezing. But anyway, so I spent 2 years there. Now we're getting into like that 9/11 time frame. And I'll tell you about the 9/11 story if you want to go over that a little bit later. Okay. So from there, I transitioned into being a recruiter because I was like, what else can I do? I'm a high energy guy. What can I get into? And I did the recruiting thing, man, and was pretty much born for that. So I did recruiting, what's called EA, enlisted accession. So that's people like your high school graduates, people like your dad when, you know, the age that he was at when he came in. Yeah. You know, I could handle all those people. So think of it as high school graduates through community college is EA. So I did EA for about almost 4.5 years. And then because I did so good, I'm not trying to brag at all, but I am a 4-time silver badge recruiter. You know, they give you a ring when you do that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I put a lot of people in. I did great, man. I did great. So I glory to God for that. But because, recruiting can be kind of tough if you didn't like recruiting.
Yeah.
But from there, I got into OA, which is, it's more like officer accession, but it's health professions.
Okay.
So I did about 2.5 years of putting doctors in the Air Force.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Probably about 36 doctors that I single-handedly put in the Air Force, you know. So it's really cool having that experience because I'm going to tell you, man, right off the bat, I was terrified. I was like, wait, I'm not a doctor. I've never been to medical school. But what you learn is how to network and you learn how to run it like a business. Yes, true. I'm not a doctor, but I know doctors in the Air Force. So whenever I had a potential applicant, I would just take them, put the doctor that's in the Air Force fully qualified and have these potential doctors talk to each other. I would just sit back and do the paperwork.
Right.
And then get these
a
people
recruiter.
in.
You don't have to be everybody. You just need to know how to get people in. Yeah.
Correct. And I had a lot of support. So that was wonderful. About 8 years almost altogether for recruiting. So got from the Kansas City area, looking at it geographically. Now we're in Arizona, a little bit back in aircraft maintenance. But I work in what's called commander support staff. And commander support staff now, I'm over the finance. So I was like a miniature accountant for the squadron, which was called a resource advisor. I was a safety manager. I was also a security manager. And I also was a anti-terrorism rep. So I wore a lot of hats. That stuff kept me very busy because our squadron was probably about 400 people, a little over 400 people. And all those issues like getting a security license to get on base, you know, or an ID or something like that, I was the person that they would talk to, or to get a line badge, a restricted area badge to go walk around on the flight line. Because if you don't have one of those, security forces will be tapping you on the shoulder and they'd be like, yeah, just lift your chin up. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily that bad, but it could be. So you want to have that line badge. But I was responsible for that, making sure that the organization was funded, making sure the people were qualified to be what we call worldwide deployable.
Okay.
So full-time job. Unbelievable amounts of skills that I picked up doing that. And to finish it off, there's 2 more careers that I did. It's long, man. It's kind of long.
It's 20. It's like almost 30 years, dude. I get it.
Yeah. 20,
I'm sitting here thinking like, man, he's over here like reminiscing on like 20. How many years?
24 altogether.
24 years of work history right here. It's like almost like we're giving a resume. Like,
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, okay, man. Like, okay, I did stuff all over the place. And I'm trying to like give you all the good stuff because I don't want to put them to sleep. They're gonna be like, "What is this dude talking about?" Oh my god!
What flight? What?
Yeah.
Did you fly or not? Like,
actually, that's a good question. Because yes, I did. I was a flying crew chief, and I did get some stick time in a B-52. So that was awesome.
That's cool, man.
At altitude, you know, that's kind of stuff you get your hand slapped. So I'm not gonna say which flight because I wasn't a pilot. But yeah, bro, that was awesome.
That's cool.
Oh
man.
my god, that was awesome. But
cool.
yeah, I actually have wings. So from the commander support staff in Arizona, I was ceremoniously promoted, if you want to look at it that way. They always say congratulations when you get orders. And I got orders to Thule Air Base up in Greenland. Yeah, so I was considered a COR. A COR is a COR, or a contracting officer representative. So what that means in English, my job was to make sure the aircraft support material, like generators, stair ladders, you know, when people get off airplanes, things like that, just different type of support equipment that they keep inside of a big hangar, that it never disappeared. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, you need me as a senior non-commissioned officer to hang out, you know, up near the North Pole for a year just to watch stuff like that. But the mission in itself was much bigger. It was a much more grand reason of why I had to be there. And then once you realized that it was an integral part of Air Force Space Command, then you understood like, it's not just me watching equipment. It's me supporting a system that is a much bigger portion of what the Air Force does as far as a mission standpoint. So, I mean, it was awesome. I actually won some awards up there. You know, I worked so hard, man. I was what's called a WAPS monitor. So WAPS, that stands for Weighted Airman Promotion System. I'm going to try not to kill y'all with these acronyms, man, but yeah, I had to step into that role. And here I am thinking like, oh my God, I'm just figuring out what to do with this core thing. But you want me to be responsible for people's careers. Like, oh my God, okay, Jesus, I'm going to pray and then I'm going to figure it out. Long story short, the beauty of being active duty is that you're not going to be doing things by yourself. You know?
Right.
So I was able to reach back to the States. I started to say CONUS because that's how we talk when it's active duty. CONUS is continental United States. So anyway, I was able to reach back to the States, get a hold of people who knew what was going on and how to run that, got all the materials, figured out how to secure that stuff because it's very time sensitive. You have to like put certain tape from the post office on there because you don't want to get stuff compromised because they would throw all those tests out and you got like 40 people coming after you because they didn't get promoted. You know? So it was a big deal. Wow, I'm getting stressed just thinking about that. No, I'm just kidding. So anyway, did a whole bunch of things like that up there, and once I got back to the States, that got us to Travis Air Force Base. And so I was in maintenance again. But this time I ran a shop, and my shop was basically dealing with dispatch. So if the aircraft needs something, which is the mighty C-17, it's my favorite airplane. Somebody might want to know that. It's the C-17, so yes, do your research. There's so much I want to say about that airplane. It's just epic. They're stationed here at Travis. They're dope. You should like it. But anyway, my goal and my job working there on Travis was just to make sure that the aircraft, the people who fly, the people who maintain the airplanes had all the support they needed, you know, to make sure these things were flying. Also to go retrieve people, like when flights come down, you know, and to take care of records as well. So our goal was if there's maintenance issues while they're flying and they come back, we want to be able to get that stuff in our system so we can actually track it and go get things repaired, you know, in a timely fashion. So I'm doing my best to get all these acronyms out. That makes it kind of hard for me to talk a little because it's so easy to switch to acronym mode. But I promise I'm going to keep it to where you guys understand this stuff.
For sure.
Good deal.
Yeah,
that
man.
So very long-winded too.
23 years of work history.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you know, with it being 23 years, you know, you had mentioned that you had worked on like anti-terrorism type stuff.
Yes.
And during that time, you know, for those of you guys, you might have just been born, you might have been 1 year old. 9/11 happened. An anniversary is not too long ago.
Yes.
Where were you during 9/11, being active duty? How did you feel being an airman during that time? Because I know a lot of people that were going in that I've talked to have said, like, you know, I wasn't sure if I was going to have to go overseas. I wasn't sure I have to be on the front lines.
Oh, yeah.
And I appreciate the part that you brought out about, you know, everybody has to play their part. Even if you think it's insignificant, it could be a major role into something that may happen down the line, whatever.
Absolutely.
Where were you at? What were you doing? What was going through your mind when 9/11 happened?
Whew. Such a good question, and so many memories, so many feelings, so many thoughts come into play, you know, when you think about something like a 9/11, because prior to that time, it was such a different world. I don't know if you guys remember, but Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor. Yeah. Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor was the #1 movie that summer. That, you know, it was like the big blockbuster, and so we all went as these aircraft maintenance people. And I remember I was stationed at Ellsworth Air Force Base up in South Dakota. So I was a crew chief at Ellsworth. And I literally remember the night prior, this is what's going to be so crazy about this story, is that Jackie flew back into Rapid City. That's the city by Ellsworth Air Force Base. And when we were making her reservations, probably about 2 weeks prior to that, I remember sitting there thinking like, hey, babe, you want to come back on the 11th or you want to come back on the 10th? And she said, oh, Dad, make it the 10th. And I was like, okay, I'm ready to book this. She said, no, make it the 11th. And I'm like, Jackie, come on. Let's get this squared away. I'm ready to click on this thing. She's like, nah, make it the 10th. And so we got her back. She literally flew back, probably got off the plane around 8 p.m., something like that. And little did we know, it was just hours away. And had she been booked on September the 11th, she would have got stuck in KC. I don't think she would have been airborne, and if she was, her plane would have been diverted. She definitely wouldn't have made it all the way to us. So here I am as a crew chief hanging out, and I was working night shift. So I got Jackie all bedded in and took off to go to work, hanging out with crew chiefs. We did our normal stuff, you know, go pre-flight, get the airplanes ready to go. And the big thing in the B-1 bomber community at that time is they were thinking about cannibalizing a third of the fleet. You know, because they don't reproduce these airplanes anymore. B-1s are considered geometry wing swing bombers, which means they can bring their wings forward and they can fly like normal airplanes, but if they have to penetrate and go fast, they swing their wings back, you know, and that gives them the opportunity to be above Mach 1.5, something crazy like that at like 500 feet. You know, good luck shooting that down. So anyway, The problem was that parts were wearing out. So as crew chiefs, we were just sitting there talking amongst each other like, hey man, can you believe they're going to be getting rid of a third of these? Yeah, man. Well, maybe it'll make our lives easier because, working outside, working on planes, especially if they start to break, it's a lot of manual labor.
All right.
And so now we're done. We were walking in to our squadron, and I just remember getting a phone call because the way the process works is you would get you have to go form up and do your out brief, so to speak. I'm trying to think of the proper terms and make it simple. So you're basically turning over your shift to the next shift coming on.
Okay.
So night shift would turn over to day shift, and we had already finished our brief. Day shift was still out there formed up doing their stuff, and got a phone call. And I remember walking in the commander's office, and I answered the phone, and I was like, hey, what's going on? And it was another crew chief. He's like, hey, are you guys watching the news right now? Now, being active duty military, if somebody else military says that, you're like, oh crap, where are we going to war, man? Where is it at? Where is it happening? And he was like, I can't believe you are not watching the news, man. And I was like, dude, what's going on? And he's like, man, they just flew airplanes into the World Trade Center tower buildings. And I remember thinking to myself, well, what kind of airplanes? Because I'm an airplane guy. He's like, I think they're like 737s. And I'm like, well, 737, if you fly Southwest, that's a 737. That's all they fly. So that gives you an idea of the size. And so I was thinking to myself, yeah, that's a pretty big bird. But, yeah, that's going to leave a mark. Later on, we find out they were 767s, which are planes that are 3 times the size of 737s, right? But in that moment, I remember thinking like, okay, hang on just a second. And so I was like, hey guys, old boy is saying that they're attacking New York with airplanes. And as crew chiefs, as active duty military, you're thinking, man, whatever. Somebody was like, hey, tell that guy to stop drinking that pink milk, go back to sleep, you're drunk. And so in the back of your mind, you're like, well, God, that's gonna look so crazy. What is going on? But right at that moment, Maintenance Operation Control, which is, we call it MOC, the Maintenance Operations Center, they came over the network and said, hey, this is real world. We are now in Threat Con Bravo. Because we run around in Alpha, which means nothing's going on. They said, we're in Threat Con Bravo. Please start implementing the necessary security postures. And so I'm looking at my flight boss, and I'm like, we better get out of here before we get stuck. And he's like, night shift, get the heck out of here. So I do this probably 10-minute drive to get home, and before I left the squadron, I called Jackie because she was asleep. Now keep in mind, it's like 7-something in the morning, South Dakota time. You remember 9/11 started happening about 9 o'clock on the East Coast,
right?
And we're Mountain Time, so you got the Eastern, you got the Central, and then you got Mountain Time. Okay. So we're in Mountain. Sun's just coming up for us. So I called Jackie and I'm like, hey babe, somebody said something about something going on in New York. Can you look? And she's like, okay, give me a minute. And keep in mind, she's pregnant with Jaden at this point, So I'm like, oh my gosh. She goes, wait a minute, let me look. Yeah, terrorist, New York. So I said, okay, babe, I'm on my way home. I'll be there shortly. The craziest memory that I have about September the 11th is feeling like when I got home, I remember I was trying to prepare myself mentally. So when I see this on TV, because nothing could prepare me for what I saw, but I tried to get myself all psyched up because our minds were like, dude, if we're under attack, we're going to be deploying. We don't know what's going on.
Right.
It was a crazy day. But I remember looking at the TV and my heart just sank, man. When I saw those 2 towers and just that endless plume of smoke that was just going over the entire city.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, what is happening? And then you hear about the Pentagon got hit.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm like, oh my God. So I go outside, and I remember this as clear as day. I was staring up, looking in the sky. It was really pretty, fall day in the upper Midwest. Real cool, crisp kind of temperatures. Not cold, but just lovely, right? Birds flying. So peaceful and tranquil. And I go back in and I look at the TV and there's people falling out of buildings. It's chaos, and it's just everybody's losing their minds. I go back outside again and I'm like, Lord, I don't know what's coming, but we are going to we're going to fight back America from South Dakota. This is where we make our stand.
Yeah.
It was like one of those kind of moments.
Yeah.
Wakanda forever, baby. Let's go. I was like, we're going to fight from here. And the next 3 days, man, it was insane because we really did become a rallying hub for B-1s. All the Air Force B-1s that could fly all came to Ellsworth. We became a big maintenance team. We got them all set up. We loaded them all up with fuel, bombs, and anything else that you can think of, cruise missiles, all of that. Got them locked on because basically when an airplane's on alert, the pre-flight signed off, the airplane is sitting there, you put a placard out in front, and then you're just waiting for the moment to go. And we didn't know what was coming, but within about 72 hours, it's the whole thing, just like think of Independence Day. You know,
Yeah.
the first movie, the good movie. The second one, God. Anyway, that part where old boy was like, "We will not go silently into the night." You know, we will not go down without a fight. It ended up being something like that. I remember some colonel in the hangar was in the middle yelling and screaming, and we were all like, "Yeah." And literally, airplanes started taking off. They took off in cells of 3. There's about 15 minutes after midnight. We had that speech around 9 o'clock at night. So, but we started launching airplanes about 12:15, and we did not stop launching B-1s until about 5:45 in the morning. It was unbelievable, man. The coolest memory, and I got to squeeze this part in because it was probably, it felt to me like my most crowning achievement in maintenance as a maintainer. Something I could be proud of. But there was a B-1 bomber that was taking off, and you know, we've been watching them all night. B-1s take off with massive afterburners. They call them augmenters in the maintenance world, but think of it as an afterburner. They're massive, and because the B-1s carry so much fuel, they can fly with those things lit for as long as they need to.
Yeah.
But so we were getting used to that. You know, they take off and you're like, okay, that's great. But and I'm putting up the chalks and stuff because we had launched another airplane. So once a plane goes, you go help out the next crew, go put their chalks up, help guys out with tools, and then go to the next airplane. So after about 5 hours of that, you know, it's kind of routine. But as I turned away, the plane's taking off behind me. I hear people going, "Oh my God, whoa!" And I'm sitting there thinking, "Oh no, we don't need a maintenance nightmare." And I turn around and I look and I see 4 huge fireballs in the sky, right? And they're all coming down slow. It looks like 4th of July or something. And I'm sitting there thinking like, well, the airplane didn't explode because I can see it's still climbing out. You know, afterburners are going, it's climbing like crazy. And I'm like, what is happening? And then it hit me. It was like, oh, that was okay, so on a B-1, it has an there's the pilot, co-pilot, and what's called OSO and DOSO. So think offense and defense. So the person that was up there in defense punched out flares. It was a female captain. And the reason she did that, because it was kind of like a let's go get them type of thing. You know what I mean? And once we realized that, man, it wasn't a dry eye out there. You know, it kind of makes me emotional just talking about that because that was the realest thing I'd ever seen in my life. Because typically when we do training missions, airplanes fly, you know, you get used to routine because it's just training environment. Man, that was the most war footing I've ever seen in the Air Force. Yeah. Now, it was crazy because I heard she got kind of a yelling because you know, those flares could fall down and light somebody's farm on fire. Right. You know? Thank God it didn't cause any damage. But she also, under the table, kind of got like a mega firm handshake like, hey, that was one of the biggest morale boosters we'd ever seen. You know, way to give a shout out back to the troops. That probably was one of my proudest moments in the Air Force. Yes, sir.
Just one last thing, man.
Yeah.
Before we go, thinking about all the things that you've experienced, you know, 24 years in the military, all these work experiences that you've gotten, all these different things. If Tony now was to tell 18-year-old Tony or even any young person that is thinking about going into the military and give them advice or give them the tools that they need to succeed, what would you tell them or give them?
That it's easy for me now because I will say being a recruiter helped me because this is all the stuff I kept telling my young baby recruits when they were coming in, including the ones that were officers going on to become physicians and things like that, is take care of your business, you know, which means go have fun, don't go crazy, but you know, you don't want to sit up in your dorm room and be a stooge or anything like that because you're going to have the opportunity to go travel, see the world. But take advantage of your opportunities as early as you can. And what those opportunities are that I'm talking about is education. The Air Force is the only branch that's more structured for you to actually go to school because it's like working in the civilian sector, like having a 9-to-5, so to speak. You know, some jobs have exception, like if you're in security forces, which is police, that's going to be different. You know, if you're in like missile command or space command, those things they're structured a lot differently, but you're going to still have that Air Force opportunity to go and start knocking out your school. The Air Force, another plug. Wow, I really do feel like I'm going into recruiter mode. But the Air Force has the community college of the Air Force built in. So just think of like whatever company you work for, and it automatically being attached to Solano Community College. So no matter what job you're doing, there's an associate degree of applied science that's attached to it. You know, so you're going to start earning credits the day you step in basic training. Now, all this was told to us, but you know, I'm in the mindset like, okay, I know I'm getting benefits. There's some GI Bill thing. Air Force has tuition assistance, but I'm out here to play. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go party a little bit.
I'm trying to get a Mustang.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, man, all of that. Oh my God! And for some people, having that much freedom. I started to say control, but you have to learn how to develop the control. So do the smart stuff. Stay out of trouble. Don't get DUIs. Don't get people pregnant. You know what I'm saying? Don't get pregnant without being married. Focus on developing yourself first, because you're going to have the opportunity to do that. Learn your career, get good at it, but take care of yourself and do it as a dual process, because you can, especially if you're single. If you're married, prioritize it, but still take care of that stuff, because what it does is it gives you the opportunity to be promoted sooner and the opportunity to move up faster. You know, the roles and responsibilities will come, but you don't want to miss opportunities on getting paid more either.
Yeah. All
that stuff helps you, including if you make a career out of it, or if you just do, let's say, like 4 or 6 years. You're still going to have benefits that last you a lifetime, but everything really hinges on how you start. And I was a partier. Look, my guardian angels are probably still recovering, but hey, Lord was looking out for me. So protecting fools and babies, yeah. So, and I wasn't a baby, so. But I made it by the grace of God.
Yeah, man, that's cool. Tony,
Yes,
man,
sir.
thank you so much for coming and talking
Pleasure.
to us,
All
talking to us about
mine.
the military.
Yes.
You're giving us such great insight today. And you guys, man, if you like this video, please give it a like below.
Yes.
Please subscribe to our YouTube page here at the Building Christian Fellowship. Make sure you follow us on all social media, Instagram, Facebook. And make sure you get your leaders on the Bible app. Y'all better be reading your Bibles, okay? I know we're not physically here in church, but you can continue to stay connected, continue to be reading your word, continue to be fellowshipping with one another, however way you can safely. Call somebody, FaceTime somebody, do a drive-by hello, anything
Yes.
you can do. But go with God. I love you guys. Hope to see you guys soon.
ELEV8.